The village of Umuagu was a land blessed by the gods. The people farmed rich soil, the rivers ran deep with fish, and the great Iroko tree at the village square stood as a sign of peace. But there was one rule that no one dared to break: marriages were chosen by the gods. Adanna, the potter's daughter, was known for her beauty and kindness. She had a heart as warm as the morning sun and a smile that could soften even the hardest souls. She spent her days shaping clay into fine pots, her hands moving with skill passed down from her mother. Emeka, the hunter's son, was strong and fearless. He had the sharp eyes of an eagle and the steady hands of his father. He hunted in the thick forests beyond the village, bringing back game that fed many families. He was well loved, and many believed he would be chosen by the gods for a noble bride. But Emeka had already chosen his heart's desire. Every evening, when the sun painted the sky in orange and gold, he walked to the riverbank where Adanna fetched water. There, beneath the whispering palm trees, they spoke of dreams. They spoke of love. "I will marry you, Adanna," Emeka promised one evening, holding her hands. She smiled, but looked away. "You know the gods will not allow it. They will choose a husband for me during the next festival." "Let the gods choose whoever they want," he said firmly. "My heart has already chosen you." Adanna wished she could believe him. But she had seen what happened to those who disobeyed the gods. The last couple who tried to defy the will of the gods had been cursed. One was turned into a tree, the other into a river, forever apart. As the festival drew near, the village was filled with excitement. Drummers practiced their beats, women wove new clothes, and the elders prepared sacrifices. On the night of the festival, the chief priest would go into the shrine of the gods and return with names, the chosen couples whose marriages would bring blessings to the land. Adanna prayed with all her heart that her name would be called with Emeka's. But deep inside, she feared the gods had other plans. And she was right. That night, as the chief priest stood before the people, his voice echoed through the air. "The gods have spoken. Adanna, daughter of the potter, you are chosen to marry Obiora, the wealthy yam farmer." A deep silence filled the square. Adanna's heart sank. She searched the crowd for Emeka, and when their eyes met, she saw his pain. She wanted to cry, to scream, but she knew it would not change the will of the gods. But Emeka was not one to accept fate so easily. That night, as the village celebrated, he found Adanna behind her father's hut. "Run away with me," he whispered. "Tonight. Before it is too late." Adanna's hands trembled. "Emeka, if we do this, the gods will punish us." "Let them," he said. "I would rather suffer with you than live a life without you." Adanna looked into his eyes, and in that moment, she made her choice. She took his hand. And together, under the cover of darkness, they ran. Adanna and Emeka ran through the night, their feet pounding against the soft earth. The moon shone high above them, casting silver light through the trees. Every rustling leaf, every distant hoot of an owl made Adanna's heart race faster. "Where are we going?" she asked breathlessly. "To my uncle's village, across the river," Emeka replied. "No one will find us there." Adanna squeezed his hand tighter. They were leaving behind everything they had ever known, their families, their homes, their people. But as long as they had each other, she believed they would be fine. By dawn, they reached the river that separated Umuagu from the next village. The water shimmered under the rising sun, calm and quiet. Emeka helped Adanna onto a wooden canoe and began to paddle across. Halfway through, the wind changed. The once still river began to stir. Dark clouds gathered above them, thick and angry. The sky, which had been bright only moments ago, turned as dark as night. Adanna gasped. "Emeka, the gods!" A sudden wave rocked the canoe violently, nearly throwing them into the water. Thunder rumbled, shaking the earth. Then, from the depths of the river, a voice echoed, a voice that was neither human nor beast. "You dare defy the will of the gods?" Adanna clung to Emeka in terror. "We love each other." Emeka shouted into the storm. "We want to be together." The voice roared like thunder. "Love cannot stand against the will of the gods. You will both pay for your disobedience." Lightning struck the river, and before Adanna could scream, the canoe shattered into pieces. The force of the water dragged them apart. She reached for Emeka, but the river pulled her under. Darkness swallowed her. Adanna woke up to the sound of birds chirping. The warm sun kissed her damp skin, and as she opened her eyes, she found herself lying on the riverbank. Her clothes were soaked, her body weak, but she was alive. She sat up quickly, her heart pounding. Emeka! She turned in every direction, searching for him. The river stretched before her, calm once again, as if nothing had happened. But Emeka was nowhere in sight. Tears blurred her vision as she staggered to her feet. Emeka, she screamed. Where are you? Silence. Panic gripped her. Had the gods taken him? Had he drowned? She ran along the riverbank, calling his name, but the only response was the rustling of trees and the distant cries of birds. Then, a soft humming sound filled the air. Adanna froze. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, yet sorrowful. It came from the forest behind her. Slowly, she turned and followed the sound, her bare feet pressing into the damp earth. Through the trees, she saw an old woman sitting on a fallen log. Her skin was dark as the night sky, her eyes clouded with wisdom and mystery. She wore a wrapper made of woven palm leaves, and her grey hair was tied back with a single red cloth. You seek the hunter, the woman said before Adanna could speak. Her voice was deep and steady, like the roots of an ancient tree. Adanna's breath hitched. Yes. Please, have you seen him? My love, Emeka. The woman raised a wrinkled hand, silencing her. The gods have taken him. Adanna fell to her knees. No, please, they can't. He did nothing wrong. We just wanted to be together. The gods do not care for human love, the woman said simply. They see disobedience, and they punish. Adanna shook her head, her tears falling freely. Then help me. Tell me how to bring him back. The old woman studied her for a moment, then sighed. There is only one way. But it is dangerous. I don't care, Adanna said, determination burning in her chest. I will do anything. The woman nodded and picked up a small clay pot beside her. She dipped her fingers inside and smeared a dark substance on Adanna's forehead. Go to the shrine of the gods, she said. Alone. Before the next full moon. Beg for his life, but be warned, love alone will not be enough. The gods will demand a great sacrifice. Adanna swallowed hard. What kind of sacrifice? The woman's eyes darkened. A life for a life. Adanna felt the weight of the words settle in her chest. To bring back Emeka, she would have to give up something just as precious. Her own life. Adanna walked through the thick forest, her heart pounding with fear and determination. The shrine of the gods lay deep within the sacred hills, a place where no ordinary person dared to go. The villagers spoke of its eerie silence, of whispers carried by the wind, and of spirits that watched from the shadows. But none of that mattered now. If the gods wanted her life in exchange for Emeka's, she was ready. As she climbed higher, the air grew colder. The trees thinned, revealing a massive cave entrance. Strange symbols were carved into the rocks, glowing faintly in the dim light. A gust of wind howled through the trees, as if warning her to turn back. Adanna ignored it. She stepped inside. The cave was dark, but at its center burned a fire that never flickered. Surrounding it were 7 stone statues, each one taller than a man, their faces twisted in eternal scowls. The gods. She fell to her knees before them. Great ones, she whispered. I have come to beg for my love's life. The air shifted. A deep, rumbling voice filled the cave. You dare return to us, child of disobedience. Adanna's breath hitched, but she did not back down. I only ask for mercy. Take my life instead. Let Emeka live. The fire flared, its flames rising high. You offer your life. Willingly? Yes. Her voice did not waver. If that is the price, I will pay it. A silence stretched, heavy and unending. Then, laughter echoed from the statues, a cruel, chilling sound. Foolish girl. You believe your love is worth a life. Adanna clenched her fists. It is worth everything. The laughter faded. Then, from the flames, a figure stepped forward. A woman, tall and powerful, her skin gleaming like bronze, her eyes glowing like embers. The goddess of fate. She studied Adanna, her expression unreadable. "The gods do not understand love," she said, "but they respect sacrifice." Adanna's heart leaped. "Then you will bring him back?" The goddess tilted her head. "A life for a life, as promised." Before Adanna could react, the ground trembled. The flames turned blue, and her body grew light. She felt herself fading, her spirit being pulled from her body. She smiled. Soon, Emeka would be free. But just as her vision blurred, the goddess raised a hand. "Wait." The power holding Adanna in place vanished. She gasped, collapsing to the floor. The goddess knelt beside her. "Tell me, child. If the gods spare you both, will you live in fear of us forever?" Adanna looked up, tears streaming down her face. "No," she whispered. "We will live in gratitude, knowing love is stronger than fear." The goddess studied her for a moment, then stood. "The gods are not kind, but today, they are watching." She turned to the statues. "Let this one live." The flames roared, then died down. The air stilled. A low voice whispered through the cave. "Go. He waits for you." Adanna's breath caught. She scrambled to her feet and ran out of the cave, her heart racing. And there, by the river, standing in the morning light, was Emeka. Alive. "Emeka!" she cried out. His head snapped up, and for a moment, he stood frozen, as if he could not believe his eyes. Then, he ran toward her. They met in the middle, arms wrapping tightly around each other. His warmth, his heartbeat against hers, it was real. He was real. "I thought I lost you," Emeka whispered, his voice trembling. "I thought I lost you too," she sobbed. "The gods, they took you." He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes. "I don't know what happened. I remember the river pulling me under, darkness swallowing me. Then suddenly, I was here." Adanna swallowed hard. "I went to the shrine. I begged them to take my life instead." Emeka stiffened, his grip on her tightening. You were willing to die for me?" She nodded. "I would do it again." For a long moment, he just held her, his body shaking with emotion. Then he cupped her face in his hands, pressing his forehead against hers. "No more running, Adanna. No more fear." She nodded, but deep inside, she knew their journey wasn't over. They had defied the gods. Even though they had been spared, would they truly be free? The sound of rustling leaves interrupted her thoughts. Turning, they saw an old figure step out from behind the trees. It was the woman from the forest, the one who had sent her to the shrine. "You have been given a second chance," she said in her deep, knowing voice. "But second chances come with a price." Adanna and Emeka exchanged a glance. "What do you mean?" Emeka asked. The woman's eyes gleamed. "You may live, and you may love, but the gods do not forget. To truly be free, you must prove that love is stronger than the power of the gods." Adanna frowned. "How?" The woman stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Return to your village. Stand before your people. Show them that love is greater than fear. Only then will your bond be unbreakable." Emeka exhaled. "And if they refuse to accept us?" The woman gave a small smile. "Then let your love be your rebellion." Adanna and Emeka looked at each other. Returning to Umuagu meant facing judgment, facing the chief priest, and facing the man she had been promised to. But they had survived the wrath of the gods. They would survive this too. Hand in hand, they turned toward the path that led home. Adanna and Emeka walked the long path back to Umuagu, their hands tightly clasped. The journey felt different now, less like an escape, more like a battle they were ready to face. As they approached the village gates, Adanna's heart pounded. What would the elders say? Would the people welcome them or drive them away? The moment they stepped into the village square, a loud gasp spread through the crowd. Women carrying water pots froze in their tracks. Children playing by the roadside ran to their mothers. The men gathered, murmuring among themselves. "The gods had taken them," someone whispered. "But they are here," another voice said in disbelief. A deep, angry voice rang out. "What is the meaning of this?" The crowd parted, and the chief priest of Umuagu stepped forward. His red robes billowed as he walked, the white chalk markings on his face making him look even more fearsome. Behind him stood Obiora, the man Adanna had been promised to, his expression dark with anger. "You dare return," the priest's voice thundered. "After defying the will of the gods?" Adanna stepped forward, her fear replaced by determination. "We did not defy the gods," she said, her voice steady. "We only followed our hearts. The gods cursed you." Obiora spat. "You should not be alive." Emeka stood beside Adanna. "But we are." His voice was firm. "Because love is greater than fear." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The chief priest's eyes darkened. "Blasphemy," he bellowed. "The gods do not tolerate disobedience. You must be punished." The villagers held their breath as the priest raised his staff. But before he could utter a curse, the earth beneath them trembled. A strong wind rushed through the square, lifting dust into the air. Then, a voice echoed, one that did not belong to any man. "Enough." The people fell to their knees in fear. The sky darkened, and from nowhere, a woman appeared in the center of the square. Her bronze skin glowed in the dim light, her eyes burning like fire. It was her, the goddess of fate. The chief priest's staff fell from his hands. "Great One," he stammered, bowing deeply. The goddess looked at him, then at Adanna and Emeka. "You speak of punishment," she said, her voice like the wind. "Yet it is love that has called me here." The villagers held their breath. The goddess turned to the crowd. "These two have done what no others dared. They chose love over fear, sacrifice over selfishness. And for that, they have been spared." A murmur spread through the people. The goddess faced the chief priest. "Do you still question the will of the gods?" The priest lowered his head. "No, Great One." The goddess stepped toward Adanna and Emeka. "Your love has been tested and found worthy. You will no longer fear the wrath of the gods." Adanna's breath caught in her throat. The goddess smiled faintly. "Go. Live. Love. And let your story be a lesson to all." With that, she vanished. The sky cleared, and the village was silent. Then, slowly, one by one, the people stood. Some whispered in awe. Others nodded in understanding. And then, an elder spoke. "The gods have spoken. Love has won." A cheer erupted from the crowd. Adanna turned to Emeka, tears in her eyes. "We are free." Emeka pulled her into his arms. "Yes, my love. We are free." And as the village celebrated around them, Adanna knew, this was only the beginning of their love story. Years passed, and the story of Adanna and Emeka spread beyond Umuagu. People from neighboring villages came to hear the tale of the two lovers who defied the gods and lived. Adanna and Emeka built a home at the edge of the village, where they lived in peace. Their love grew stronger with each passing season, and soon, their union was blessed with twin sons. The village elders, once bound by fear of the gods, now told their story as proof that love could conquer even the divine. Obiora, bitter and ashamed, left Umuagu and was never seen again. The chief priest, humbled by the goddess's words, became a gentler leader, teaching the people that the gods were not only to be feared but also to be understood. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Adanna sat outside their hut, watching Emeka play with their children. The laughter of their sons filled the air, blending with the rustling of the evening breeze. A familiar presence made her look up. At the edge of the trees, a woman stood, her bronze skin glowing faintly in the fading light. The goddess of fate. Adanna's breath caught. She stood quickly, her heart pounding. "Great One." The goddess smiled. "You have done well, Adanna. Your love did not just save you, it changed your people." Tears filled Adanna's eyes. "Thank you for sparing us." The goddess nodded. "It was not my mercy that saved you. It was your courage." Adanna bowed her head in gratitude. When she looked up again, the goddess was gone. She turned back to her family, her heart full. Their love had not only conquered the gods, it had become a legend that would be told for generations. And so, in the village of Umuagu, under the watchful eyes of the gods, Adanna and Emeka lived, loved, and proved that even the heavens could not stand against the power of true love. The end.